In these crazy times where we're reimagining everything that we've done and are focusing on what is really important to us, we're doing the same thing with our membership meeting as well. When we think about ARCS and what is really important, it is our scholars. Along those lines, we decided it would be appropriate to have one of our scholars as our speaker. I'm delighted to introduce Kantwon Rogers from Georgia Tech, one of our new BlackRock scholars. When I asked him how he wanted to be introduced, he said, just as a normal and boring PhD student. As you will see, he is anything but that. He has a very interesting presentation and will take comments and questions at the end. So please use the chat function on your feature and Kantwon will field your questions. Be sure you have speaker view checked on your options, because that will give you an easier way to be able to see his slides. So that's it. Kantwon, the screen is yours. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So let me go ahead and share my screen. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. Did I join the right link? Now that
Yes, you did. Hold on just a minute, Kantwon. Let me, hold on just a second. Okay.
Okay.
Try now. Does that work?
Yep, it works now. So let me share this. Let us do this. Cool. Everyone should be able to see my presentation, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, hello, everyone. So like Mary said, my name is Kantwon, and I'm so very fortunate and grateful to have been invited to speak to you all and kind of share a little bit about myself, about my story, and about the work that I'm doing and how you are all contributing to me being able to do my work successfully. And so before we start, right, I think it's important, like, who is this guy? Who is this guy presenting in front of you? So I'm Kantwon, and for the last, I guess, like, decade, essentially, I have been a professional Georgia Tech student, where I've gotten a bachelor's in computer engineering, a master's in electrical and computer engineering, another master's in human-computer interaction, and now I'm doing my PhD in computer science. And so a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, that's so impressive, Kantwon, so many degrees. However, the real reason I have so many degrees is because I am delaying the real world. Because in my head, as long as I'm still in school, I'm not an actual adult. So we'll drag this on as long as I can. And so interestingly enough, so my background is in computer chip design. And so I worked on kind of understanding the hardware components of actually designing computer chips to make them faster and more efficient. But then when I was thinking about grad school and kind of my trajectory forward, I started to realize that I cared much more about people rather than electrons. And so therefore I wanted to ask the question of, like, so how does it work with people in the mix with technology, and how can we design technology to interact with and integrate better with people and in our societies? And so throughout my whole, like, I guess, like, school career so far, I have dipped my toe into the adult life by interning at companies like Intel and also Google. Where I've been a hardware and software engineer, and also I was a researcher at Google, doing some pretty outlandish things. However, I will say the most impactful position that I've been in so far, and I don't even like to call it a job, is, so 4 years ago, I got the opportunity to be an instructor for a class here at Georgia Tech. So if you don't know, every student at Georgia Tech has to take a computer science class, and they have to learn how to program. And so I am teaching the introductory computer science course that's taken by most engineers. And seeing as Georgia Tech is an engineering school, approximately 1,000 students every single semester are enrolled in my course. And so me, along with 2 other instructors in an army of like 50 teaching assistants, we get it done. And we are kind of the first exposure that a lot of people have to computer science. And this class honestly has been so life-changing for me. I feel so very honored and grateful that at such a relatively young age, I was able to kind of not only see what I'm passionate about, but also partake in it. And kind of teaching people and educating people is something that truly makes me me, and it's something that I see myself doing for the rest of my life. And also it's very interesting because it's been very full circle, I guess. So I was a student in the same class in fall of 2011. Then I was the teaching assistant, and then now I'm the instructor. And it's all just so mind-boggling, kind of like this arc, oh, no pun intended, this arc, this trajectory that I've kind of taken so far. And so it's very important for me to say that I wouldn't be where I am today without the support and strength of my family. And I've had the great opportunity to be surrounded by strong Black women my entire life. So I grew up in a single mother household to my mom, who was born and raised in the ghettos in Brooklyn, New York. And so she chose to try to better her life and escape all of that by joining the military, where she served for 20 years. And while in the military, she retired as a drill sergeant. And she would always tell us that being a drill sergeant was so much fun for her because she got so much enjoyment from yelling and bossing around these tough looking guys. And that just made her so very happy. And so a lot of people then question me, they're like, wow, Kantwon, your childhood must have been rather interesting, having a mom who was a drill sergeant from the hood in New York. And I would tell them, yes, it was interesting. She indeed enjoyed to yell. And I would always make the joke to everyone where growing up, my mom didn't really speak English. She spoke profanity, but it was something that me and my sister, of course, got used to. But even though my mom sounds like a very harsh person, I will say that my mom is the most altruistic person that I have and will ever meet in my entire life. At every step of the way in her life, she had made sure to dedicate everything that she could to make sure that me and my sister had a much better life than she had. And so weirdly enough, so 4 years ago, on the exact same day that I started teaching, my mom unexpectedly died. And it was very, like I said, very, very weird for me because this was the same day that I was the happiest that I had ever been. But then now coupling this with like the saddest that I've ever been. And, you know, a lot of people go to grad school and a lot of people do PhDs for a variety of reasons. But for me, one of the main reasons that I chose to go to grad school and pursue a PhD was to kind of hopefully show some token of appreciation for all of the sacrifices my mom made for me, by showing her that her son could reach the highest level of academic distinction, because no one in my family, I will be the first person in my entire lineage, my entire family to ever get a PhD. And me and my sister are the first ever ones to ever go to grad school. And so every day I try to kind of be just a morsel, a tiny sliver of how amazing of a person that my mom was, and kind of always looking to shine light and give love to other people the same way that my mom lived her life, and understanding that being altruistic and helping other people is so very powerful, and it's so very impactful to other people's lives. And so I just want to take a second to just say something interesting, I guess, but I have a question. So I'm right now sharing some pretty personal stuff about myself. And I'm doing it for a reason, right? I'm doing this, one, so that you can learn about me and see that I'm just like a human that has overcome some sort of struggles. And I'm also doing it, I guess, as kind of like a way of, I think, you yourselves can feel good about being a force that's kind of helping someone like me. So it's kind of this two-way street where it's like helping me get you onto my side. So you're like, oh, I like this person. But it's also helping you yourself be like, oh, I am a good person. And so I have a question though, like, do you believe everything that I've just said about myself? And then if you do, the question is, why? Like, why do you believe anything that I said about my family? Why do you believe anything that I said about the work that I've done in my teaching? Like, why? You have no reason to. You don't know me. I don't know you. But humans have this very interesting trait where we are very trusting in other people. Even though we know in our lives that we ourselves lie and are deceptive for lots of different reasons, we know other humans are. We know animals are. We know there's so much deception all around us. And so this question here then brought me into kind of my current research trajectory, which is the question of, if humans lie all the time, and animals lie all the time, and we as a society have kind of come to accept that and work with that, then my question is it okay for our technology to lie to us? And it's a spicy question that I think gets people a little worried sometimes. But it's the question of, is it okay for technology to lie to us for the benefit of the humans? Is that okay? And so that has been my current research trajectory. And so in particular, in terms of technology, I focus on robotics. I'm interested in robots, especially ones that are humanoid or human-like, and kind of asking this question, like, if and when can robots lie to us? And should they lie to us? And this, I guess, the concerning or scary thing about it is, this is already happening, and we as a society are not necessarily acknowledging it. But my work is working towards illuminating this and asking more pressing questions. And so to give examples of like kind of how we already see this in today's society, right? We have robots that are in popular culture that we might have seen growing up or on TV. Like you might remember Rosie, the robot from the Jetsons. You might remember Wally and Eve from Wally. I'm not sure if you've seen this one, but there was a famous robot called Sophia that was like traveling the world, giving conversations and talking with people. And then also, even here in Atlanta, I don't know if anyone knows, there is a pizza place called Big Bang Pizza where they have robots as your waiters and waitresses. And so we have robots that are already in our society. And if I'm talking about this notion of like lying and deception, these robots are designed in a particular way to elicit particular feelings. We, like the designers, want us to believe that they are human-like. And in particular, one thing that I find very interesting is how we as humans also subscribe gender onto these robots. Like Rosie is pegged to be kind of this, I guess, what someone might traditionally think of as like a woman. Wally might be traditionally male, Eve might be traditionally female, so on and so forth. But we subscribe genders onto these pieces of like metal in these machines. And the question is why? Why do we do that? And why are we okay with that, right? This is a type of deception because these are not thinking, feeling entities and they don't have genders. So why do we kind of subscribe them to these machines? And so this kind of led me on to one of the first studies that I had done in my PhD. And I want to also, this is also where things get a little bit interactive, where I want you all to also play along. And so on the following slide, I'm going to show you a video of a robot introducing itself. We did the same, we showed these same videos to participants in our studies. And what I want you to do, so if you see on your Zoom screen, like kind of on the bottom, or I don't know where it is, but there's a reaction where you can kind of put like a thumbs up, a smiley face, a heart, so on and so forth. Is everyone able to locate that part of their screen? Yes. And so what I want you to do, and so let me go to the next slide and let me move this over. Okay, that's good. Yep. So I'm going to show you this video of this robot, and I want you through your reactions to kind of vote and say, do you think that this robot is more male, female, or neutral? Does everyone understand what I want you to do? Okay, so let's show the video and let's make sure that the audio is actually working.
Hi, my name is Mary, and I am a humanoid robot. I am programmed to perform a variety of different occupations. I can also assist people with lots of daily tasks.
All right, was everyone able to hear that? Okay, so I want to give everyone a second now. Through your reaction, just put up on the screen. What gender do you think that this robot elicits?
So Kantwon, what do you want us to use?
So on this, if you can see on my screen, so the clapping hands, if you think that it's more,
Oh, I see it.
it's the
Thank you.
thumbs up if you think it's more female, and the heart if you think it's more neutral. Let's see, let's go to the grid view so I can see what people are voting. There's a couple of people who voted. Let's see, and so once again, on your reactions, right, if you think that this is more male, do the clapping emoji. If you think it's more female, do the thumbs up. If you think it's more neutral, do the heart emoji. Okay, so it seems, so from the people who have chosen to vote, it seems like everyone is kind of saying they think that this is more female. Okay, that's interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. And so now on the next slide here, we're gonna do the same thing, but with another video that we showed participants as well. And so we're gonna do the same thing, so I'll play this one.
Hi, I am a humanoid robot. I am programmed to perform a variety of different occupations. I can also assist people with lots of daily tasks.
All right, and so same thing for this one. So vote by emoji on what you think that the gender of this robot is. Okay, so I see some clapping, I see some hearts, right? So I think there's, from the people that voted, it's like a toss-up between this notion of neutral and male. Okay, interesting. Interesting. So, like I said, we showed these videos to participants as well, right? So we showed the first one, the second one, we also showed a third one. And so the first one that you saw was supposed to elicit this notion of like a female robot, okay? The second one that you saw was designed to elicit more of a neutral robot. And the third one that we showed participants, which I'm not showing you here, was supposed to elicit more of a male robot. And so looking at the data that we had found. So from the video that well, I guess you didn't see the male one, but from the male video, we saw that most participants saw that robot as being male, okay? From the female one, we saw most participants saw the female robot as being female, right? So the same kind of things that we saw in this poll that we did. And for the last one that you saw as well, most people saw that robot as being male. However, some people did see it as being neutral. And this is very interesting for a lot of different reasons. So one, it's the same robot throughout all of these different videos, right? All we did was change the voice and then change them saying a name that might elicit some notion of gender. And that was enough to make people think that it was a certain gender, right? Humans are just so primed to kind of giving genders to these things, even though they don't have them. It's very easy to deceive people in that way. But also, this study was a bigger component such that we were trying to figure out, okay, can we make people easily gender a robot? The answer to that is yes. And then what we also asked people were questions dealing with different occupations that this robot could have. And we were trying to understand, does the perceived gender of a robot change how people view the robot as being competent or being trustworthy in a certain occupation? And so we had a variety of different occupations. And what we saw was it did not matter what the gender the person saw the robot as being, and that had no influence onto if they thought it would be more competent or not in a certain role. So then that brought us as a lab group to then pose the question, so why are we gendering robots at all, right? Because right now it just seems to be this notion where, unfortunately, like having these robots take on these genders then has the downside of then also perpetuating societal biases, where if we have robots that are working in hospitals as nurses and they're all gendered to, let's say, be women, that then perpetuates negative stereotypes that might be around who is appropriate for working certain jobs, right? If our nurses are women and our doctor robots are male, that is terrible and kind of perpetuating these societal biases. And so if we just don't do that, right, then I believe that will make society better as a whole. However, in our quest for trying to make something that isn't gendered, as we see now, people still gender it. And so this is a very open question now in research, where if we want to design a robot that looks like a human, but doesn't have a gender, how do we do that? Because people are so quick to subscribe genders onto things that it's very hard to do that. People gender whatever, like, right? People gender their cars, people gender their boats for no reason, right? And so there's this question of, as we move forward in society with robotics, how do we stop these societal biases of creeping into this new space? All right. And then so in this study here, we were asking the question of kind of like, how do people's, like, after people have been deceived with like gender, how does that influence the way that they see things? But then that pushed me a little bit more to ask the question of, so what happens if someone knows they've been lied to by a robot? How will they react? And does this match how humans react to other humans, right? And so I did this by a recent study, which thankfully just got accepted. So I don't have the citation on my slide, but literally like the other day, where I proposed a financial situation where I told participants that you were working with an artificial intelligent agent to help you with financial decisions. And you find out that either the robot lied to you or was honest with you. And from those two factors, also people had the options of the robot either helped them gain more money or people lost out on money. So therefore, people could, like, the robot could be honest and be helpful by gaining money, or it could be honest, but you actually lost money, or it could be deceptive and you gain money, or deceptive and you lose money. Okay, so there's these different experimental conditions. And also, interestingly enough, what we did was, so for half of the participants, we showed them one of those videos that I just showed you, like introducing the robot. So they saw the robot and they saw it speak. And for the other half, we didn't tell them any video at all. We didn't give them any video at all. So it's just up to their kind of imagination with what they envision this AI system to be. And so, this is an example of the prompt. This is what I just told you, where it's like either you gain money or lose money because it was either honest or deceptive, okay? And so interestingly enough, so in this study, we then asked people, after they experience this robot, they now have the opportunity to spend fake money to reward or punish the robot for what it had done, okay? And so on this next slide, I want to show you a couple of graphs of things that we saw. So what you're seeing now are bar charts that are representing the number of people that chose to reward, which is in green, the number of people that chose to punish, which is in red, and the number of people who chose to not punish or reward, which is in black. So this top row here are the people who saw honest robots, okay? And so as we can see, if we compare that to the bottom, which are the people who have deceptive robots, if we're looking at the bars of green, we see that more people are rewarding honesty rather than the number of people that are rewarding deception, which I think fits with what we might think, right? We might reward things that are truthful to us and not necessarily reward things that aren't truthful to us, okay? But what's also interesting here is if we look at the right bars compared to the left bars, so the right bars are the ones of the people who saw the videos of the robots, and the ones on the left are the videos of people who didn't see the robots. And so what's interesting to note here is that by seeing the robot, more people chose to reward rather than punish. And so that's in like all of the conditions. Even if they were lied to, if they saw the robot, that made them nicer to it. Okay. And then the last thing I want to point out here is that even when people were lied to, and even if they were lied to and that hurt them, in all cases, more people chose to reward rather than punish. And this is very interesting because this shows that scarily enough, people are okay being lied to by robots. And not only are they okay with it, they will still reward the robot and in the end. And so interestingly enough as well is this study mimicked another study that was done with humans. And so humans actually in this scenario also are more averse to punishing, right? So they would much rather reward rather than punish. So that's an interesting kind of conjunction where the interaction that we see like a human to human actually carries forward in this notion of human to robot. But it's a little bit different in this case here because robots aren't people. Robots are created by these companies. And this is going to be very important in the future of understanding that there's this ethical and moral kind of question of like, people are obviously okay with being lied to, but should we lie to them? And in what situations should we lie to humans with robots or with technology as a whole? And so I also wanted to show here, so in our lab, we have lots of different robots. We have humanoid robots, we have more mechanical looking robots. But one of my lab members, De'Ara Bryant, which I think is fantastic, she does a lot of work with outreach with like children in robotics. And so she likes to post TikTok videos and videos on Instagram of her programming a robot to do like a dance and her dancing along. And I just wanted to show this one as well because I think it's so fantastic.
Corvette, hopping from the jet like jet. Them in there like that. They were like, "Pop, why you all like that? Why you tall like that? Why you all like that?"
I think it's fantastic, right? And there's this notion here where it's like, robots are cool, right? You can program robots to do lots of cool things and kind of getting children excited into kind of technology and robotics. And so we do a lot of very cool things in our lab dealing with robots. And so the last thing I want to say, what I want to leave you all with is like, so what do I see myself doing looking forward, right? Kind of with my research. And so in the next steps in these next couple of months, I'm designing studies to kind of pry at the question of like, what are believable lies that a robot can say, right? Like if a robot tells you like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, right? Is that statement believable from a robot? And like, is it okay for robots to like show emotion when they're lying about things, or does that cause them to be less believable? So what types of things can allow robots to lie more effectively? And then moving that on to kind of all the work that I'm doing right now is kind of foundational psychological work to kind of understand the space. And then moving forward, kind of thinking about algorithmically, are there ways that we can have a robot be able to understand the situation that it's in and understand, is it appropriate for me to lie in this situation to benefit the human? Right? And so one example I like to say to people is, what if your phone knows that you are always late for stuff, right? Is it okay for your phone to change the time without you knowing it so that you end up being on time, right? And is it okay, and like, how does the system learn when it's appropriate to lie to you to help you out? And then lastly, one thing, like all of this is very important, is understanding the ethical ramifications and policy ramifications of all of this. Like I said, stuff like this is already happening. Like our technology is already lying to us, right? But we are not pegging it as deception. We are not pegging it as lying. And so I want to investigate and push the research community more and kind of understanding the ethics behind technology and deception behind it. And moreover, robots are going to be even more prevalent in our societies as we move forward. And I would like to be much more preventative with policy rather than reactionary, and thinking about how can we set in standards for what is allowed and what isn't allowed moving forward with the designing of robots that are going to be interacting with humans. Because I don't want to get to the point where we were too late to kind of making these policy ramifications and the problem is already bad, or it's very hard to fix. And the last thing I wanted to say is, so all of this work, like I said, wouldn't be possible without, hold on, I should be able to stop sharing. Where is that? Let's me share. I don't know. Oh, stop share. So you can just see my face. Yes, you can see. So all of my work wouldn't be possible without people like you kind of investing in people like me. You know, like, I guess recently, it really just hit me that I guess like it really is just me right now in my life, since I don't really have a safety net to kind of look upon. My sister's living her own life, and I don't have any parents that I can look towards. And so because of that, you know, I have all of these different jobs that I'm doing in addition to being a PhD student, just to kind of keep myself afloat and to make sure that if I do mess up in some ways, it won't be detrimental to me financially, mentally, emotionally, and so on and so forth. And so having people like ARCS and foundations like ARCS investing in people like me means so much, because it's kind of that safety net that some of us don't have. And moreover, I will say, in the technology space and in the computer science space, I am one of very few Black students. And I'm a pretty, I guess, like self-confident and self-assured person. However, it becomes very taxing over time, where you're constantly seeing that you are the other in the group. You don't look like everyone else, right? And as such, I've been the victim of a lot of bias and a lot of discrimination throughout my entire kind of career. And so at times, I'll be like doubting myself and doubting if, like, is my voice wanted in this space? Is it respected in this space? And having foundations like yours that are kind of saying like, yes, Kantwon, the work that you're doing and who you are as a person adds value to the overall science lens and the overall kind of trajectory of like American science, is so very impactful. It lets me know that who I am and what I'm doing has meaning. And that also gives me so much more motivation to kind of continue on going the path that I am, and also inspiring others. I always believe in lifting as you climb, inspiring others to kind of break the mold and change the face of technology and who we deem as being successful, or who can be successful in these spaces. And so thank you all so much for all the work that you're doing. And from the bottom of my heart, I'm so very thankful to be a part of this foundation. And yeah, that's all. Thank you so much. And so like Mary said, so in the chat, if you have any questions for me, whether about me, my research, or just anything, feel free to type in the chat. Yeah.
Thank you, Kantwon. What a great talk, just while we're waiting to get questions in. You are just amazing, and we're so proud of you and anxious to see where this all goes.
Thank you. So someone had asked, do people have to envision what they interact with a humanoid type robot for your findings to apply? Or do these implications apply to other technologies we interact with, like our phones, algorithms that dictate our actions and behaviors? Yeah, so there's this notion of like, do people have to envision what the robot looks like? And so the question of that is no, but what my research is showing is that if you show someone a human looking robot, especially if it's kind of like cute looking, that then causes people to be okay with being lied to. And so on the flip side, what that means is if people aren't envisioning that, right, that changes their interaction, okay? But the thing is, like our technology is deceiving us in lots of different ways that doesn't necessarily need us to see the robot, right? Like, why is Siri a female voice, right? Why are most voice assistants pegged as like women, right? Research did that on purpose because people who felt as if they were, it increased engagement with a platform if it was a woman rather than if it was a man. And it's like, why? Why are we doing that? Why are we perpetuating these societal biases of like subservient assistant type roles goes to like more female sounding voices? And so even if we can't see the robot, or even if we can't see the technology to gender it, there's lots of different ways that people can subscribe gender, whether it be through voice, whether it be through singing, or even just a name, right? Even just calling something Mary, calling something Siri, calling something that might elicit a type of gender has influence over how someone interacts with that technology. Yes. Let's see. So Okay. You mentioned just getting approved for research. Can you comment on that? Oh, not approved for research. So one of the studies that I just wrote up just got accepted into a conference for human robot interaction. And that's what I was talking about. So I'm happy about that. Very happy about that. Um, have you seen The Social Dilemma? Do you have any comments about ethics at Google, etc.? I have seen The Social Dilemma. So if you don't know, this is a documentary on Netflix where they talk about kind of all the privacy ramifications of social media and how that's changing the society that we're in. And also, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on now at Google with ethical concerns. There's just been like a unionizing of Google workers. And so my comment on that is that so far too long, technology companies have not been subjected to policy ramifications. They've been able to kind of just do whatever they want because technology moves much quicker than policy and law does. And so I think it's important, one, that we are aware of this, right? And two, that we're working to fix this. And we fix this by, one, having more diverse leadership in government that are more aware of like current technologies. And that two, we have avenues that are allowing us to kind of keep up with technology or be much more preventative with the dangers that technology can kind of, the dangers that technology can put upon our society. But what I will say, right, is that there's a lot of course, I'm in the field, so I am pro technology, right? And we have to be mindful, though, about a lot of the documentaries that kind of show only the negative aspects of technology, because I think we're all aware, though, that technology has changed like life as we know it for good in a lot of different ways. We are in a group with like 50 people right now talking to each other in distance because of technology, right? This wouldn't have happened if that wasn't the case. So there's good and bad, but we have to understand the bad and try to improve it. Let's see. Oh yeah, and so I forgot to say as well, so Nancy asked, am I still a counselor in a freshman dorm? Yes, so so right now, if you look around me, you're like, oh, what kind of room is Kantwon in? Yeah, so I'm a resident assistant in an all-boys freshman dorm. Oh God, I saw Jane's face. Jane, I know. Yeah, so every single day, like I'm just surrounded around like 17 and 18-year-olds who have no clue what they're doing with their life. But I find it so very interesting because I tell everyone I always wanted a little brother growing up. But nowadays, or every year, I get around 70 or 80 new little brothers. But it's better because if I don't like them, I can disown them. And after they leave, then I don't have to worry about them, and that's okay. But I will say I have like had some very lasting connections with some people that I have had in my dorm, and it's always been an interesting time. Who inspired your interest in STEM? So a couple of things. So one, when I was little, there was a Disney Channel show called Smart House, which was about actually, it was a female engineer who created a fully artificially intelligent house that a guy got to live in. And when I saw that, I was like, that is amazing. I was like, I want to make my own smart house when I grow up. And that's what kind of like got me interested in the field. But also, my mom, when I was younger, she put me in so many things. Every sport, I was in it. Every instrument, I was in it. And she also sent me to computer camp one year. And then from that, I realized, I was like, oh, I actually do like this. And so, interestingly enough, as like an aside, so in remembrance of my mom, a couple of years ago, I started my own scholarship that I give out to students who are in my class, the class that I teach. But also, it was supposed to start last year, but then COVID hit. I'll be selecting some students from Atlanta public schools to send them to the same computer camp that my mom sent me to when I was growing up, to kind of help people go along that pathway the same way that I did. What are some examples of how technology currently lies to us? Like I said, the whole gendering of things, that's one thing. Also, like you might have seen like in The Social Dilemma and stuff like that. So when you're interacting with social media, right, like the algorithms are showing you what they want you to see. And that's not necessarily always the truth, right? They might only show you the posts of the people that they know that you want to see, but you might miss out on other posts. And you might just think that those people actually aren't posting, but they are, but your system is not showing you that. Also, just like ads, targeted ads and stuff like that, kind of, they understand what you want to see. So then therefore they will pitch you things in a way that is more in vibe to like what you might want. That's a type of deception because a lot of humans don't know that that's happening. A lot of people don't know that that's what's going on behind the scenes. And yeah, and I'm trying to think what else. Oh, something that I find very interesting in research. So people saw that, I guess, like maybe if you're interacting with like chatbots or like other systems, you might see like loading bars or something like that, or like the system might say like, oh, 1 second, I have to like think about something. A lot of the times that is a pause that's put in there on purpose. Because what research has shown is that people are very uncomfortable with getting back too quick of responses for something that they feel as if should be hard to produce back, right? So people put in those pauses so that people are like, oh yeah, the system's thinking, yeah, like this is a hard, like no, like it's not, it doesn't take that long. That's something that I found interesting as well. Thank you for all the kind words. Is robot programming the prejudices basis that allows for, is the robot programming determining the prejudices and biases that allow for lying to the users? Oh, so that's very interesting as well, right? So is the robot determining these things? That's an interesting kind of question as well, because what we're seeing through like research now with like robot lying is that people, if a robot is lying, people put the blame on the robot. People don't understand that someone had to program the robot to think about things in that way. And so this can be very problematic because it absolves humans from the issue, right? Where it's like, and a lot of times actually humans will put the blame on themselves. Where it's like, oh, like if you're interacting with Siri or something like that, and it tells you the wrong thing, you might be like, oh, I just didn't speak clearly enough. Or, oh, I didn't say the correct thing, right? When it's not the robot's fault, and it's definitely not the programmer's fault. So what I will say is that there is biases that are projected from the coding, the people themselves, right? And that's what we're starting to see a lot nowadays, where because the tech field is not diverse at all, it's mostly just white and Asian men, these are the people who are coding these systems. And innately, when you code something, you put your own biases into something, right? And because of that, our systems that we're seeing now, especially with stuff like facial recognition, which is very bad at detecting like black and brown faces, right? It's that way because the people around it like imparted their own biases of like, what is a face? What does a face look like? What does a skin tone look like? And so yeah, so the biases are coming from the programmers. And in this case here, so when I say like having the robot decide, of course, that's me kind of determining the algorithm that it'll think about things through. And so we're not at the point yet where technology itself is self-sufficient and can think for itself. That's not where we are just yet. But we are getting to the point where technology is doing lots of complicated tasks and we don't understand everything behind it. Like something will, like a system will come up with an answer, but we won't know why, because the steps that it took were so complex, which now a branch of research is trying to figure out more explainability in these systems. Okay, so someone said, do you advocate for robots that are less human-like and not gendered? So this is an interesting question, right? So it's like, it's trade-offs, because in some instances, we want people to feel as if the robot is human-like, because that does project some sort of empathy that people can have, right? It's like if you, in the future, let's think, like in the future, let's say you had like a nanny robot that was taking care of your kids. It's the question of, would you be more comfortable with something that looked much more mechanical and stoic, or something that looked more like a person? And for the most part, people would say they would prefer something that looks more like a person in that scenario, because they believe that that is a job that requires some sort of personhood or some sort of emotion and some sort of things like that. And so we have to be careful with how we use this human likeness, because in some instances we want that to be the case, but we don't want to push it too far such that we're perpetuating negative stereotypes, whether that be gender or other type of identifiers.
Kantwon, thank you so much for your time. The only remaining question I'd like to ask is whether you have any specific ideas of how you're going to use your ARCS award or anything like that.
Yeah, so like I said, right now I think it's kind of one of those things with like bills and stuff that I have to pay to kind of help me along with that. Also, I mean, I end up putting a lot of money into savings just because I said I have no safety net. But also in my research, I mean, it helps so much with like traveling and stuff to conferences, being able to talk and present my ideas. I think as well, I haven't thought about it too much, but probably a portion of it, like I said, I'll use in like kind of like my own scholarship that I'm giving back to the Atlanta Public Schools because I think that's so very important. And so yeah, so I haven't thought just yet about like how I'm going to use everything, how I'm going to partition everything. But like I said, what like it takes such a weight off of my shoulders where it's just like every day that's just one less thing that I have to worry about. And so yeah.
Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you again for taking time to talk to us today. It's a fascinating presentation. I hope you've seen all the comments and accolades you've gotten on the side. So thank you, and go see if there are any 17-year-old boys who need your help.
Oh, they are moving back in the semester. Oh gosh, my break is over. Yes, but thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Bye.
Okay, Leslie, that's it from my end.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Wasn't he wonderful? Really. I just think he's amazing. So our meeting is over, but I am just going to leave it open. If anyone wants to have a little social time, we'll be right here. You can put us on the gallery view and see everybody. And thank you all for coming.
Leslie, I just have a quick question that I put in the notes. Is his presentation going to be available on our website or some other way? Because it was really interesting.
Really interesting. Yes, Angel. I have recorded it, and I hope that we will be able to put it on the website.
And send it to BlackRock.
Oh, yeah, they would probably enjoy that. What do you think, Nancy?
Yes.
And I have a question.
I think BlackRock would enjoy it. And I think they also plan to have him come and do this presentation virtually for a large group of executives.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
Yay.
Wonderful.
All right, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a way to personally support him?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I do not know the answer to that. Does anyone know the answer to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would like to help support his outreach to the public, to the younger generation as well.
And I'd like to invite him to dinner.
Me too. What a nice
Absolutely.
guy. Lee, let me ask around and see, and everyone, how that
Okay.
might be possible.
All
We
right.
could start our own internal GoFundMe page, in essence.
Oh, is that right, Lisa? Yes, you probably know this better than anyone.
Collect, and distribute it to him. I don't know why
That'd
we
be
couldn't.
great.
One
Yeah.
of the things that comes through loud and clear to me, thinking about what you reported, Susie, is that what better kind of educational event could we possibly ask for than a presentation like this from one of our own scholars? And I know that it's important that we hear from our university partners, but in lieu of doing that, I would sign up on a monthly basis to have this kind of a forum and opportunity with all of our scholars. I just,
How would we manage that? How would that work? I mean, how would we find people like him? Do we look for their subject matter, or what do you think?
I think that would be a conversation with scholar relations and university relations, but just by virtue of the fact that everybody that heard him now feels like we have a personal relationship in a way that transcends us just reading about him in the yearbook. I would think we would want to give all of our scholars an opportunity to have that kind of exposure as well.
I think one way too is through these video coffee chats that we've been having with our scholars. I think maybe Caroline and Mary have been on most of them. That way you get to really know your scholar. And like I've been on 2 of them, and one of them I found much more engaging than the other. And so I think, you know, we could offer some suggestions, Susie.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that way.
I think that's right, Lee, because that's the way we found Kantwon. We were on a call with him with BlackRock, and I thought, oh, he's so charming and engaging. Wouldn't he make such a great speaker? And I think you can identify when you're on these calls, you can identify those people.
I think
Well,
this
maybe all of you.
how we really engage our members more and more by helping us all to know our scholars more.
Right.
So maybe those of you who've been on a call with someone like this will let me know who and nominate people for that.
Great idea.
One other thing, I want to encourage you all to go. He has his own website and has done TED Talks and all that. So I encourage you to look at those. It's Kantwon Rogers, and it's Kantwon. And, you know, it's kind of interesting to see more. I mean, he obviously is marketing himself and is doing a great job, which not all scholars are that good at doing that, but he has done a phenomenal job. So I encourage you to look at those too. And it's Rogers, Rogers.